Thank you, Lane. I do
Thank you.
appreciate it. You're welcome. Thanks again, for those of you here, thanks for joining us. The way that we prefer to do this is that it's a discussion. It's not just me sitting here speaking at you, because I think that, you know, we have, and I said this a little earlier, we have a lot of talking heads out there, a lot of them, no matter where you go, and your brain just saturates at a certain point. So for this to be interactive is much more helpful. So I'll kind of provide a platform, and then we can start to open it up from there. So feel free at any point to bring up something that you're thinking about or whatever you think is relevant, and we can continue on. I just think it'll be a lot healthier, a lot happier, to be honest with you. Like Lane said, you know, we've moved into another holiday season, and when you take a look, quite frankly, at how much is happening right now it's Hanukkah, and as of tomorrow, it's the winter solstice. And then you have Christmas, and then you have the day after Christmas, you have Kwanzaa. That's just that. That's only those five things. But we're not just managing those 5 things. We're managing whatever you're doing at work, whatever you're doing with your family, whatever you're doing in your social life, whatever you're thinking about or doing with COVID as an environmental issue, all right, and as a health issue. So we've got like a ton of things happening. And I think that sometimes we compartmentalize things so that they're more manageable. But when you step back, you have to ask yourself, why are so many people incredibly overwhelmed? So I'm seeing a lot of people in, for those of you who don't know, I have a private practice and a business consulting firm, and I'm an adjunct at St. John's where I teach Homeland Security and criminal justice courses. And in each of these places, what I see is people are really maxed out, but they're struggling to be okay. So they'll say things like, it's okay because I'm going to go shopping, and then Hanukkah's good. It's good. And it's like, it sounds to me like people like, I'm almost at the end. I'm running. They grab water. I'm running. And then they hit they hit like kind of the mark, and then they fall over at the end of the race. And that's what it sounds like to me over and over and over. So people are just trying to be okay a lot. And the other thing, and let's just throw this in while we can, is we're having an upsurge in seasonal illnesses. So we always have the flu now. We always have the cold now. And now we always have things like COVID, whatever variant is, like du jour. All right. So we really don't know what we're going to do. Can you wear a scarf? Do you wear a mask? Do you like not see people? Do you put a bag over your head? Like, what are you supposed to do? And you're supposed to go shopping, and you're supposed to make like food for 1,000 people. It's a lot. It's really, or you're supposed to attend and you have to deal with your aunt, whatever it is, it's all very difficult. So when people say, especially right now, I'm not feeling great. I don't have the energy that I had before, whenever that was. People are looking at themselves comparatively, and they're also looking at things categorically. And quite frankly, I think that it's a little bit of a train wreck for most people. So what we're going to do today is discuss kind of like these little bits that people have to deal with, and that would include anything that you want to share. But we should also talk about what you can do to kind of put a stick in this of that moving bicycle, like of the spokes, because you need to make it stop. If you allow it to continue, the only thing that happens is you're still adding more ingredients to the formula, and it makes it very complex to manage. So our job here is to simplify. All right. So one of the things that Lynn, Kim, and I talked about was like the holidays and what happens with people at the holidays. So I'd like to kind of start the meat of this with that. Once upon a time, families lived very close together. So when I think of that, I think of, for instance, like Lane, you said something about all of your family living very, very close by, right?
Yeah.
My dad, everybody lived within a certain amount of blocks in Brooklyn. Everybody was there. So the holidays had a ton of people at them. And as we all grew up, it's very possible that we were able to share a portion of that, but over time in our lifetimes, what's happened is those numbers have decreased. And those numbers have decreased because people have passed away, or they're too sick, or they've moved away. And the younger people, over these generations that have been created, people are moving farther and farther away. Okay, so to the point where people are meeting on Zoom, trying to eat a meal, which if you've never done it, don't ever do it. So the thing is that that's kind of how people, that's kind of a challenge for people in getting together. So those big meals where there was a lot happening and you were able to catch up to a degree, and it was kind of fun and a little noisy or whatever, and the children did whatever. We've lost a lot of that. And we've also lost a piece of that because of COVID. So people are afraid. So you don't just have this natural progression of families changing, family locations changing, but you also have this progression of people don't know what to do because they're afraid to get sick, or they're afraid they'll make somebody else sick. All right. So that also causes division within the family. So for instance, I had a conversation yesterday about somebody who had COVID 3 months ago. They're fine, they're working, they're back in the world, it's all good. But there's an elder family member who said, if that person loves me, they won't show up for the holidays because I don't want to get COVID. What if I get COVID? That elder family member doesn't fully understand the science of this, but the truth is it doesn't matter because they're afraid because they don't want to die. This is really the truth. They're old enough to say, if this is respiratory, it can kill me. Well, the young family members don't necessarily understand this because they're like, but why can't, so-and-so do this? So now what you have is this division in the family. So no matter what happens for their Christmas, it's going to be a little lopsided because there are going to be some hard feelings no matter what anybody does. So we also have to figure this into the complexities of what's happening with our families or our friends. It's very, very difficult. So now that everybody's considerably depressed, let's talk about it. Let's just make it a little worse. All right. The other piece is this, is that you have people, and Kim, thanks for bringing this up. You have people who move into the holiday season and it's excessively depressing for them. It's a period of time where somebody's dad died or their sister died, or they've experienced a lot of loss. And I've seen an uptick with this, especially in my office, where people are talking about people that they lost due to COVID. And now you have this upsurge. So we're really managing, as human beings, we're managing a whole heck of a lot. So I don't know if anybody wants to share anything else, if this brought anything to mind before we move forward, but did this bring anything up?
Yeah, it's funny. I wanted to make a comment when you mentioned the elder person not allowing, someone to come, to the house. So, my mother's your typical old Jewish lady. Prior to, the pandemic, she complained about everything. Early on in the pandemic, she got COVID, and it was bad enough where we were making, funeral arrangements. She miraculously, pulled out of it. And guess what? Now she has something else to complain about every day of her life. But what triggered that was, she got her vaccinations, got sick every time she got a shot. Just recently got a booster, got sick as a dog from it. But the interesting thing is, she, over the past 2.5 years, or call it year and a half since the vaccines come out, over the past year and a half, she refused to see her best friends because her best friend wasn't vaccinated. And I'm saying, Mom, that don't make any sense. She should be worried, not you. You're the one that has the vaccination. Oh, no. I mean, so talking about things with depression and disease, but to me, that's like sheer insanity. Like, how are you possibly thinking that way? It makes me nuts. And we get in arguments over it every time. And then it ends up in a yelling thing, hang up. All right, I'll call you in 2 days. But it's
Right.
that mentality, like, that's insane. How are you processing that in your brain?
Right, because that's a big thing, that people feel that if somebody hasn't been vaccinated, they've packed up the virus and they're bringing it to your house and they're going to all over you. And that actually, according to the science that we have, which I know the science keeps changing, but what we do have tells us that that's not the story. But when your brain, because remember, my game is always neuroscience, right? When your brain really thinks that person's sick, this is communicable, and that's all you've got, that's all you've got. So it's like saying, as long as you did this, you wouldn't get polio. Meanwhile, somehow everybody's getting polio when you're younger. That's kind of what the strain is. So no matter what you say, Lane, ultimately she's only got what her brain is really strongly hanging on to, and she can't hear it. Even if, unless somehow you make an inroad, but the more people press in, the harder that person defends. So the next thing you know, not only did you hang up and you talk 2 days later, but she's thinking that you're so ignorant. How could you not see that? And so and this is exactly what happened, quite frankly, in that family that I just told you about. It's really a similar story, and you can't, there are some people that you can't get them to shift because their brain is stuck in that space for whatever reason. It's built on whatever the belief is. That's really the truth.
I think we call that brain damage. Yeah.
Or Dane Bramage. So, absolutely. Right. So the thing is this, is that what you want to do is try to figure out what is healthiest, whether it's a story like that or it's any other kind of circumstance. All right. Where like if somebody's experienced death during, not their own death, obviously, but their father passed away during Christmas, right? Or on some holiday or during some season of the year. There's a tendency for people to want to come together when there's a crisis. So we want to be there, we want to fix it. And that's part of being a human being. It's actually a very cool part of being human. We have a tendency to lean in. And very often the person who's feeling sad, okay, or triggered or reminded of the circumstance, what they do is as you lean in, they start to back up. And it can be very dark for them. So you have to figure out how to find the balance. So even Lane, with that kind of a circumstance, or Kim, the things you'd spoken about before, where if somebody has a loss, like how do you celebrate with them when you can't, because you feel obligated to do the right things. You have to find, it's kind of a middle ground, but it's also an ebb and flow. All right. So it's not that you are the sacrificial lamb, so to speak, and you're the one who has to live on the outside of their reality. It's more like, what can I do to make that person comfortable? But what can they do to understand that I need to be okay also? If you start to take everybody out of the equation, but the one person, it's lopsided and it lacks balance. So you want to look for health. So the big thing I want to say here is when we talk about mental health, we seem to think that it's like a very separate thing. Okay. So it's like, seriously, sorry, I just thought I should do this. All right. So I was head on my desk, all right, because you wouldn't believe what's in my office. But that's like saying, okay, I need to be healthy in my brain. I would throw this, but it'll break. So that's like mental health. It's separate. It's not separate. Health is health. I mean, health is just health. That's what it is. So your brain is responsible for running a lot of what's happening in your body. All right. So we're really talking about the biology of how to feel better or how to operate better or how to, react better, whatever that is. So first of all, please know, we're talking about health, whether it's health for the holidays. And look, you could be sick, but you can still have great mental health. So we're talking about whole health, which is really important to grasp. All right. So I would ask everybody to try to remember that, because when we talk about, I'm working on my mental health, well, then what does that even mean? You're going to a therapist? That's good. Are you eating potato chips all day? Because your brain's going to feel like crap. So the question is like, what are you doing to be okay? Really, what are you going to do? What are you really doing to be okay? All right. So one of the things that is happening, and I just want to throw a stat out at you again, just to make sure that you understand how profoundly intense this is. It is 7 out of 10 employees. There was a national survey, and 7 out of 10 employees said that COVID-19 and the pandemic at large has been the most stressful event in their entire career. And they surveyed all types of people. It wasn't management or frontline people. It was just like this huge survey. And so if you think that 7 out of 10 people said that, that also tells you there's kind of like a horrible weighted blanket kind of sitting on everybody all of the time or much of the time. The question is what do you do? Our tendency as human beings is we look for comfort. This is something that your brain is set up for. We are all about surviving. We really are. Ultimately, I don't care if you're going to Bloomingdale's or you're in some wilderness camp. You're trying to figure out how to survive and feel better in doing that. And I mean that. That's why I said Bloomingdale's as a reach. All right. It's what do I do to feel better? I feel like crap. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go shopping. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to watch a ball game. That's what we do. You know what else we do? We overeat. And we overeat and it's a problem, or we eat weird things, or we overdrink alcohol, or we use other substances. Or maybe you have some pain, I don't know, whatever it is, like say muscle relaxers, non-addictive muscle relaxers that you got because you strained your back. I don't know. Well, now you just want to chill out and you haven't been sleeping well. So now you start to take those. We have a tendency to look to be comfortable, often at a severe cost, even if we don't think it's that severe. Let me tell you why we do some of these things. First of all, alcohol. Okay. Alcohol, and I'm sorry that if I'm killing your like, after work thing today, your happy hour, but let me kill it. That's my job. All right, so here's the deal. We drink because it makes us laugh. Alcohol is a disinhibitor and it does all these great things. And you know what? You can chill out because it's a disinhibitor. The other thing that it is it's a sleep disruptor. That's nice. And it often comes with that fabulous bloated look, which is another issue, but that's okay. All right. It's a sleep disruptor. So not only are you disinhibited, especially if you drink way too much, but you've actually introduced to your body something that will help you to have interrupted sleep throughout the evening. You do that enough, your brain learns that it's supposed to wake up at night, even without alcohol. Okay, same thing with other substances. Okay, so what happens is that, let's say you're stressed out, let's say you really need to sleep better, your sleep isn't fully restful, you go out, you're drinking with friends, and you're reinforcing what you're doing to your body, which includes your brain, right? It's not a great thing. You do it, whatever. But the point is when you do that a lot, you're teaching your brain how to not rest at night, which is an interesting thing. Eating, very interesting concept, all right? I mean, we all have to eat. However, the question is, why do you eat when you're stressed? Why do you eat? Why do people eat when they're tired? Why do you eat when you're bored? Okay. Why do you eat when you're upset? Okay. Eating allows for our blood sugar very often to rise. Okay. So what happens is when you're tired, you need something to stimulate you. Boredom is the same thing. So what happens is instead of just sitting there and being like, oh, and your energy is dropping, you'll grab something like the proverbial Snickers bar in the commercials. It's based on science, actually, which is interesting. It could be, but it could be all kinds of things. All right. It doesn't have to be sugar, straight sugar. It could be certain kinds of carbs. It could be all kinds of things. Right. We do that. It allows our body chemistry to shift. Our brain chemistry shifts. We feel better. And then we drop again. It's not healthy. So the thing is, you have to ask yourself, what is really healthy? Is having an alcoholic beverage unhealthy? It's not going to kill you. All right. Unless you take it too far or you're doing it every day. Is it, is overeating? Look, everybody overeats or undereats at some point. The question is, why are you doing what you're doing? And are you setting yourself up for really great health? Okay. How about your relationships? What do those look like? Why do you re-enter relationships that aren't helpful over and over? Like, is it healthy? So I often say to people, just take a second, that thing, like take a breath because you're oxygenating your body. It's an actual thing. And stop and ask yourself, what is that a healthy? Just ask that one question. You don't have to ask anything else. You don't even need to. And people talk about the why. Why am I doing this? Right in the moment, who cares why? It's what? What is this? Is this healthy? And if it's not healthy, maybe you want to rethink your next step. And if you don't care, you'll take that step and maybe you'll revisit it at another time. I mean, I think we should always keep it real. All right. Anybody have any thoughts about this?
I've gotten very depressed all of a sudden.
Perfect. I'm here to help. This is a total setup to populate my office. I'm totally kidding.
Yeah, what a mess.
Right, exactly. But that's the thing. That's exactly the thing. If you really stop and look at what you do, and this is everybody, and there doesn't have to be a pandemic, you're just living your life. When you stop and really look at why you do what you do, there are a lot of things that you can question. However, I'm also a big believer in, if you do this all of the time, to Lane's point, you can become extremely anxious and or depressed because all of a sudden you're not living a healthy life. This isn't good. That's not right. I could fix this. So this is what I have to say to you. It's great to want to be healthy, but all things in moderation, which includes your quest for better health. All right. If you become obsessive, like if you have obsessional thinking about everything has to be right, it's got to be healthy, I got to do this, I got to go running, I have to I can only, I don't know, that thing, whatever it is, bone broth, you're going to have a problem. So that imbalance, like I talked about imbalance before, also becomes very unhealthy. All right. Question is, what do you do with all of this? First of all, look at your productivity. How's your productivity? At home, in the office, wherever it is. Are you happy with what you're doing? Do you like your outcome? All right. So I would suggest that people become a little more outcome oriented. We often get stuck in our process. What did I do? How did it go? What is really happening? That's important. Your assessments are important, but what's your outcome? So I'm going to ask you to You can ask why whenever you want, but I would ask you to take a look at the what. What's happening? What am I producing? What do I feel like when I do that? Do I feel accomplished, or do I feel like it's just never ending, like an open gap forever? All right. Again, we're in a period of time where there's a lot of pressure. So you want to suss out what you can and simplify. All right. Does this make sense? Because I know I'm coming at you from every angle. I know that. It's deliberate. I thought I'd tell you that. Anyway, so, all right. What do you do with this? There are 3 or 4 steps. I made 4 steps today. All right, 4 steps on things to rely on because they're simple and they're easy. Yes, Jay.
Yeah. Question. Hear me? Well, can you hear me?
Now I can, yes.
Okay. Spoke about before about behaviors that we overeat, or act out, whatever. I find that a lot of these things, these behaviors, are because we don't really learn how to deal with the situation properly.
Yes, that's true. Do you want
And
to?
well, I'm my wife's a teacher, right? So
Right.
she teaches elementary school. She came home last week. She's totally stressed out because some kid needs to be in a different place, probably in a different school. Just drove her crazy around there. And I tried to say to her, like, and of course, it's not easy to say, don't get stressed out about it. And the 10-year-old, well, what are you learning with a 10-year-old? But, she was, and I can't say to her, well, just let it roll off your shoulders. So I don't know how to get her to kind of self-reflect a little bit and say, I just need to deal with this thing.
Right. Well, first of all, this is a great thing to look at. And I'm sorry. I am sorry for the wife. Your wife. I'm also sorry for the kids in the classroom at large, including the kid who's having a tough time. Your wife's job is to get in there and teach, let's say, 20 kids at once. And this also applies to an office. It applies to a party. It applies all over the place. You have a group of people, and her job as the sole informing party, okay, is to make sure that she teaches all of those kids and that they are able to progress to the next grade, because otherwise they're going to have problems with the rest of their educational process. It's a fact. So she has 1 kid, perhaps maybe even 2, that really they're not the square peg in the square hole. They're just not. So they're having whatever their problem is. We can't diagnose them from here, right? But it's hard for her. She also sounds like she cares about what she does, because if she was an overwhelmed, jaded, long-term teacher who's been in a bad neighborhood for a long time, they go home, it rolls off their back because they're done. So it speaks to how much your wife actually cares about what she does. So the way to speak to her isn't to say, let it roll off your back, because that's clearly not what she's made of, right?
Yep.
I would talk to her about caring. What do you do when you have 20? Ask her, what do you do with 20, however many 20 kids in a classroom? What's the way to take that exception 22?
23.
Oh, 23. Okay, so what do you do with the 23 kids, and what do you do with that exceptional kid? That kid could be the brightest kid on the planet, but have such bad social anxiety, they can't deal, whatever it is, right? It could be anything. The point is what do you do with the exceptional person, and how do you do that? And she'll sit there and first say, I don't know. That's why I'm so freaked out. Well, the point is you care. Remind her of the fact that she cares, because clearly she does. Now you're tapping into her strength, and she can, and that's this discussion is, how do you tap in to your best stuff? Now, Jay, that was a really good thing to bring up, because we all face that, so that's really good. Thanks. I hope that was helpful. Good, thanks. So one of the things that you can do is create new routines. It doesn't mean to just up and shift everything, but it's take a look at what you do, ask yourself about your strengths, exactly where I was going, Jay, and ask yourself, like, what do I do really well? And how do I reroute this so that I can change the way I feel? People inherently need structure. This is a really important concept. We need structure, and without it, we flail. We really do. We're good. Like, you can send somebody on vacation, and as great as it would be for everybody to live on their own little, I don't know, island or their private Idaho, whatever. After a while, you start to miss certain things, and you would create routines. That's what you do. So the question is, what can I shift so that I can feel better and get out of this other thing that doesn't make me feel so good? All right. And you can apply this to anything. This is all applicable to anything. All right. So look at your best methods and take those methods and apply them to something else. And if you don't have any methods that make you feel good, borrow it from somebody else. I always ask people about their superheroes. If you could look at somebody else, like, and really think about what you appreciate about what they do, what is that? And people literally, they talk to me about like superheroes and fictitious characters and real people and, people in the sports industry and all of this. What do you think that they do that makes their productivity or their life or whatever it is? What do they do that feels really good to you? And adopt it. Just adopt it. And if it's not natural to you, I promise you, in time, it will be natural to you. So you can go against your own grain as you adopt something that would be better for you. It's creating new routines. The next one is take care of yourself. And this is such a subjective concept. What makes sense to one person doesn't necessarily make sense to another. So take care of yourself means figure out what works for you. And that's what you should be doing. All right. So remember, physical health and mental health, it's the same stuff. So what does it mean to take care of yourself physically? When you go out, you're having a tough day and, things feel chaotic. So would you like run into like, I don't know, Columbus Circle in the city and just start running around with your eyes closed? No. So why would you allow that to happen in your head? Take some time and ask yourself, like, how do I keep myself safe? How do I decrease my chaos? How do I not buy into everybody else's chaos? And you do that by tapping in, go back to the thing before, tap into your own strength. I don't really need to listen to that. Like here, the self-disclosure. I have a tendency to, I don't like gossip. Like I don't, all right. If it's not my firsthand info, it's just not my thing. When I have a neighbor who has a tendency to talk about everybody, she's great to your face and destroys you behind your back. As much as I love her and I've known her for so long, there's a part of me that has decided I can't do that anymore. So I've stepped back and she's like, where are you? What? I'm like, I work a lot, which is true. Okay. But my extra time, I don't want to do that. So I'm done there. Did I bring her some food the other day? Sure, I did. Am I watching her? They're older. Am I watching, just making sure they're okay? Sure, I am, because I care, because that's my strength. But I don't need to buy in and become a part of that other destructive behavior. It doesn't feel good to me. And I think that the ripple effect of that is dangerous or unkind. All right. The other thing is ecotherapy. A lot of people have not heard this term. It's such a great term. All right. Ecotherapy is really taking some time to go outside. Now, I am not a big outdoors person. I am not. But I will tell you that if you go outside, between whatever sun is available to you, the fresh air, even if you're in the city, it's other air, it's not recycled air. By getting outside, there's stimulants out there that affect your brain. It affects your heart, your lungs. It can change your blood pressure. All of these things are really good. So that thing about, I think I have to take a walk. I don't care if you go outside and just stand still. Go outside. That's called ecotherapy. It's using that ecosystem to benefit yourself. All right.
I love that.
Right. And then remember, for those of you who were with us last time, I talked about the difference between stress and anxiety. Very important to understand, right? Anxiety is this foreboding, it has no end. Stress is short term, it's answerable. You can problem solve stress. So when you start to feel like things are not feeling so good and I can't take this anymore, whatever, stop and ask yourself, is that stress or is that anxiety? And nail it down. Because most of the time, here's the nice news, most of the time it's stress, which means that you will find the answer. Even if you don't have it today, you will be fine. All right. You just have to problem solve. And it looks to me like everybody in here, you problem solve all the time. That's my guess. Again, we're all about survival. Don't forget that. you will make your way through. So where things feel impossible or very depressing and very upsetting, you can find your way out of that forest. You can, okay? When we're faced with something very immediate, it's in our face, it's polarized, it's magnificent, we can't see around it. But when you back up, it's like standing in front of the Empire State Building. When you're standing in front of it, that's all there is. But if you backed up a couple of blocks, you'd see all kinds of things, including the sky around the top of the building. So stop, back up a little bit, give yourself a break, maybe do a little problem solving, maybe just take a breath, maybe stand outside, but do things to take care of yourself. Okay, and then of course, there are the other things that people talk about all of the time. Okay, journal. If you're into writing, feel free to write. If you think that you're a great lyricist, or even if you think you suck and you'd like to write some lyrics, go write a song, go write a poem. Nobody's going to judge you. It's all yours. It's your stuff. Go ahead and do it. All right. Again, take that breath. Why? When you breathe in through your nose, as long as you're not all stuffed up, and you breathe out through your mouth, in through your nose, out through your mouth, what happens is you're taking a second, you're forcing a second of stopping, and you're oxygenating your body. If you do that a lot, you will actually feel high. That's the truth. Don't do that, but I'm just saying, okay? That's why they have those oxygen bars. All right, so in any case, the other thing is this: remember to be careful about your sleep, especially this time of year. There's a lot on people's minds. There's a tendency to do things like go to bed, even if you have a very busy day. When you go to bed, you're waking up a lot in the middle of the night, or you just don't have a very restful sleep. Do things to take care of yourself, where it's 24/7. What you do during the day will affect you late at night, and vice versa. All right, if you don't sleep at night, it affects your day. Because the truth is, guys, you're a whole person. You're just a whole human being. So this is all working together. The other thing is, and this is in concert with that, take charge of your schedule is the third one. Taking charge of your schedule. So even if you have what I call outside forces, it could be kids, it could be something at work where it demands, or commands your schedule. There are parts of your day that you own, no matter what. This is why a lot of parents, when their kids are young, hide in the bathroom. This is the truth. Why? Because they actually do own that time. They just need to keep the outside forces away for a while. And the bathroom is a safe place to do that generally. So the thing is you do own parts of your schedule. And a lot of the time we dismiss that because we feel like it's just too much. I'm working all the time. And then there's my family. And then you're piling this stuff up. Push it aside and ask yourself, you know what? I don't care if it's 10 minutes. What do I have? Or I have 5 minutes. The truth is, if I'd stop piling crap into my own head, I'd actually have 20 minutes. Just take some time. Just take some time, back up, all right? The fourth one is, I call this lean on me, but not too much, all right? And I love this. This is like one of my favorite things to actually think about. When we have a crisis as people, we have a tendency to band together. It's innate to us. It's literally innate to our orientation to lean in together. 9/11 is a great example of that. Disasters in schools, all kinds of things that happen. Somebody has a death in the family. Somebody has something, their house falls over, whatever it is. We tend to lean in. Can I bring you anything? Is there anything I could do for you? You can call me at any hour, whatever it is. We lean in because we're called naturally to do that. So when you're not feeling okay, one of the things to do is to avail yourself to somebody else or go do something that makes you feel good. All right. Giving, I hate to tell you neurologically, is very much about how you feel as the giver, even though that sounds bad. It's the truth, right? Because if you do something and it doesn't feel good, chances are you probably won't do it again, or you'll change the way you've done it. So go do something for somebody else. You're feeling sad. It's a tough time of year. Maybe you don't know if you're supposed to celebrate with somebody or not because they're having a tough time. Take that, and Kim, this really answers that question. Take that and say, you know what, this year, why don't we make a bunch of sandwiches for kids who go to like a subsidized daycare program? Why don't we do that? And why don't we bring it there? Why don't we get a few of our friends and why don't we make big trays of healthy food and bring it to a homeless shelter? Like, why don't we do that? Why don't you do those things? Maybe there's a race where people, and I mean this, neurofibromatosis has a run every year, and they have people in wheelchairs. They need people, they want to be in the race. They're very sick. They can't walk, but they need people to push the chairs. Why can't you do that? There are all of these things that we can do. And when you're not feeling good, you can force feeling good into place by getting outside of yourself and focusing on somebody else. Their reaction will help to guide your reaction. It naturally causes you to feel better, and you're doing what you're built to do, which is lean in when people have a tough time. Okay. It's kind of like you're like a support when a tree isn't really steady. You become that support. The reason I say, but not too much, is because leaning in, you can also then abandon yourself and forget that you need to do you as well. The other side of this is never forget that as much as we need our friends or our family or our colleagues, and we're talking, they're like, you could tell me anything. Actually, you really can't. Your friends are your friends. Your family is your family, and your colleagues are your colleagues. And maybe you have this like super close friendship, but they can also just take so much. Everybody saturates. So while you're feeling saturated, if you're constantly dumping your stuff into somebody else, say for help, you'll end up saturating them too. So you want to remember that at some point, I don't care if you call a prayer line, I don't care if you call a warm line, or if you're in crisis, a hotline, or you find a therapist, make sure that you find a system that can also support you so that you don't burn people out around you. You don't want to do that either. So really, ultimately, guys, this is about taking the time out and asking yourself, is this healthy? Is this healthy? How do I simplify this? I just want to feel really good. There's a lot to feel good about, a lot. And I've given you ways to force feeling good into place. So any questions, thoughts, sarcastic comments?
The breathing example, spot on. Yeah, if some of you remember who've been around the V50 community from early on, we bought a woman in Laura Juarez, and she bought meditation into all of our lives, and she did a 4-part series. And it's the one thing that I still do consistently every single day, at least once for 10 minutes, is breathe and meditate. It's mind-boggling. You can't tell anybody what it does or what it's like. You just do it. Trust me. And here's the YouTube video. Go watch it. It's amazing. So it's amazing what breathing will do.
It's incredible, but people really think that it's just take a breath. Okay. It's literally biologically you're affecting your body. Your body needs oxygen, and it forces you to take time. And what Lane is saying, it becomes, once you start that, you don't want to stop. It feels great, right?
Well, I cheat also when I do it, because sometimes I'll lay down on the floor in my office and I'll actually set my phone timer for 10 minutes, because about 6-7 minutes into it, I'm out cold sleeping. So, but when you wake up, you feel like you've been sleeping for hours.
Oh, I'm a big cat napper, a 20-minute. In fact, I just did it before this session. I was dragging, didn't sleep well last night. I was dragging. And yeah, I set the timer for 20 minutes and lay down, and I'm all ready to go.
See, but listen to what you're both saying, is that you understand one of your strengths, and that really does it for you. I can't nap. Right. So napping is really good if you can do that. For people like me, that's the end of me. It's over for good. But I know that my strengths, I know that I'm best at night. I'm not a morning person at all, even though I do it because the world needs us to do this. But I'm better when my schedule allows me to work later in the day and way into the night. I feel great. And I feel rejuvenated and I can sleep. So you have to go with what really makes sense. But that breathing or that napping, you guys are talking about giving yourself rest, which is brilliant. It's brilliant, really. You're brilliant. It's true. Anybody else with some thoughts? All right, then I'm going to tell you my secret. Here's a secret. I came at you from every angle, not because I thought I would see how dizzy I could make you, but because it's stimulating for your brain. Notice when you're listening to somebody speak and they're talking about one thing over and over and over, and it's paced, and this is what you do, and they're hitting the same topic from the same place, from the same angle over and over, Remember I said saturating? Your brain saturates. It's done processing because your brain basically says, oh my God, I've heard that 17 different ways. Could you please stop, please? And somehow you have to stay awake and not fall asleep on the floor lane. You have to stay awake through the rest of it and appear like you're interested because they're looking at you. What I did for you was to work to stimulate your thinking, because every answer doesn't apply for everybody, right? And for you to come here, and I really believe it's for you to come here and take time out and commit to this, I think is a very important thing, because that you're doing something for you. Or maybe you're doing something, like Jay said, to maybe help somebody else, like his wife, right? Because it makes you think of something. It's important to allow yourself to stimulate your head, your brain, so that you can actually feel a lot better. It may make you tired, but it's tired because you're thinking and you're processing and you're breathing and all of these good things are happening. So this platform can set you up to have a really nice holiday season. Okay. It can set you up to have a really nice everything. This shouldn't just apply to the holidays. There's a lot happening at once, but you'll have a lot happening at once throughout the year. That's what happens when you're alive. So this is just one more hiccup, right? It's just one more little hill. You've got this. You've done it 1,000 times, right? I'm sure everybody in here has done this 1,000 times. So you're good. You're good. And you need to remember that you've got this and that you're good. And when you don't feel well, there's something you can do to feel well fast. It's not a snake oil get rich quick scheme. This is the biology of feeling happy or better, so there you have it. There you have it.
Fantastic. And you might want to close your ears, Dr. Allyson, but I'm looking forward to seeing a bunch of you at happy hour later.
I'm drinking seltzer.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Elsa.
Seltzer. Yeah,
Seltzer.
I could go out.
You'll be on the invites going forward.
Thank you. You're so funny. Yeah. So no, look, I hope you all have a really, really nice time. Again, it's about what you're doing, and how much you're doing that in volume, etc. Just be careful of. It's all. I hate to say this. This is really all common sense. It just is. That's why you just ask yourself, is this healthy? And if you don't care at the moment, that's okay too. Just as long as you don't do that all the time.
Yikes.
Yep.
You weren't supposed to say that.
Just being
Why is
real.
that?
Just
But
being real.
Allyson, why is that the trend in our society to overdo everything? The drinking, the partying, the drugs, the stealing, the cursing, the whole society seems to be like, it's not like, okay, I went for a drink, like the kids today, whatever the issue is, like, or used to be. College was okay, you got drunk once in a while. Now it's like, they're drinking gallons of liquor in order to prove to their friends they can handle it. Like, why is that? What's changed?
I think this is a huge conversation, and I really do have my own take. No, but I have I really have a take on this because I teach. It's funny, like in my therapy practice, I see primarily adults and say mid to older teens, but I do see children. I'm one of the few people that see children. So I'm privy to seeing children and like from 7 up, and I teach in a college. And then I have this whole adult world, right? So I get this I get this view that I think a lot of people don't have. You're not wrong. Everything, it's like so many things are in excess. And if things are in excess, it means things are out of balance. The question is, where does that come from, right? That's the why.
Right.
And I think part of that is that it has to do with the way that parenting has evolved, or the way schools treat children and how that's evolved over time. We've gone from, I don't know, Dr. Spock or whomever saying, look, we're the adults, you're the children. This is not negotiable. So we moved through these different platforms that taught parenting to include children in the decision-making, it shifted the way people do things. And now what you have is you have a lot of kids who literally, like, by the time they hit college, it's really an incredible experience because they don't answer you when you ask a question. I mean, I've gone through this now it's about almost 5 years, literally 4.5 years. where I'll stand there, ask the kids a question, and this really answers this, Jay. I'll ask the kids a question like, what color was George Washington's white horse? I actually did this because this is so outrageous. And they sit and they stare at you like, and I'm like, could you answer me? And they're staring. And one day, about 4 years ago, I stopped the class and I'm like, that's it. I'm done. I'm done. And they're freaked because the professor's done. What does that mean? And I'm like, I don't even know what I'm doing here. Now they're afraid because I don't know why I'm in the room. And I'm like, I don't know why I'm teaching because it doesn't matter what I ask you. I can ask you what color your jacket is and you can't answer me. Why can't you answer me? And after waiting for a long time, one kid finally got the guts up to say, because you know the answer. I'm like, well, good, but that's like, I'm supposed to help you know the answer. And this other girl said, yeah, but if we wait long enough, you'll tell us. It's impossible to have this happen for 4.5 years with hundreds of people. So it's not 1 or 2 kids. It's not about being privileged. These kids come from all over the place. I mean, St. John's is really a diverse pot of students. So this is everywhere. So I really do believe that environmentally, socially, we've changed the way people do things. It's all about access. Social media, you have to look like you live like amongst the stars all the time, or you don't rate. So I think that's a lot of it. And the other piece, Jay, and I do believe this, I think we have such a stressed out society. And especially over the last couple of years, you know, between politics and all these other things, I think that we're so stressed out that the human tendency is to overcompensate. So I also think that that's a piece of it. So I think it's kind of a mashup with some other stuff, of course, but I think that that's part of it. I do. And kids, they drink till they black out. They don't just drink till they get drunk, which is, I actually said to my students when I'm like, listen, I've said it for a few years. I'm like, I teach about something called the RK selection and all these things, how thiamine is affected if you're over drinking. I mean, like college drinking, right? Like excessive all the time. And I said one year, I was like, look, you don't drink till you pass out. And this kid was like, why? And I'm like, really? God. So I had to explain why. They really didn't understand. It's a part of the fun. Bye, checked out. You know, so I think it's just weird. It's not good, but I think that it has a lot to do with a bunch of things like those things, you know.
That'll be our next topic.
Yeah.
Talking about the generational gap.
That's right. We can do that, right? Because that's up on that list. We can do that. I'll take it outside of the workplace, though. I'll do both. That'll be some topic. I may never work again after that.
This is awesome. Thank you so much for your time, Dr. Allyson, and thank all of you for being here. Always a great break from the day.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Allyson.
Thank you. It's been a gift. I appreciate it. It's an honor.
Yeah.